We are very, very pleased to have as our special guest speaker this evening, Kim Goddu-Alexander, who is the director of both the B Green Living and the B Corp Initiatives at Bethesda Green. Kim comes to us with years and years of experience in environmental justice and combined with sustainable business practices. She has two master's degrees from Antioch College in sustainable development and climate change, right? And has served as a consultant for many years as an environmental consultant. So we're really, really pleased to have you, Kim. Thank you for coming in with us. And for those of you who are joining us this evening, we will be monitoring the chat box. If you have any questions for Kim as she's going, if it's appropriate for us to kind of break into her presentation, if it's something really timely, I'll be happy to do that. Otherwise, I'm hoping we'll have a few minutes at the end of her presentation to take questions. If you would not, it's up to you if you want to have your camera on or not. This is being recorded and will be put up on the Montgomery College YouTube playlist for our speaker series. So just be forewarned, if your picture is up, your picture may be on the internet forever and ever. So so without further ado, welcome, Kim, to the professional development series for college students. We're really, really happy that you can join us tonight.
Thanks, Rebecca. That was a wonderful introduction. So thank you. Welcome to the B movement. So as you can see, we have a number of organizations working with us on a program called the Best for DMV. And the Best for DMV is a campaign program that we are working with a number of organizations in the DMV area to help businesses start to benchmark their environmental and social impact. And we do that through a tool called the B Impact Assessment. So these are some of our partners. We've got Think Local First DC representing DC. We've got Good Business Works and Community Wealth Builders in Baltimore. Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay is out in Annapolis, and then Council Fire is also out in Annapolis. So we've got a number of good organizations representing across the DMV. We are looking for a Northern Virginia partner. I'll just put that out there. Next, so about B Lab. So B Lab is a nonprofit organization. They're based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And their goal is to promote business promoting the use of business as a force for good. So their vision is that one day all companies will compete not to only be best in the world, but best for the world, which is where Best for DMV, the name, comes from. So they created a tool called the B Impact Assessment. The assessment is for for-profit businesses only. It's not for nonprofits. And the assessment, we're going to go through all of the different components of the assessment, but that's a little bit about B Lab. There was recently a book released called Better Business. It's by a Cornell professor. His name is Chris Marcus. And I can send folks that information. His book is available on Amazon and all local book retailers. That does a really deep dive into what the B Corp movement is all about and the founders and how the company got started. So if you're interested, I can send you that information. So that's a little bit about B Lab. And then we'll dive right into what is a B Corporation. So some folks have heard about B Corporations before. So you can think about the B Impact Assessment and getting B Corp certified like you would fair trade, what a fair trade certification is like for coffee, or what a USDA organic certification is for milk. So basically it's an assessment, and the B Impact Assessment is looking at 5 different areas of the business, where the USDA organic certification is looking at the different farming practices for whatever food they're certifying. So it's a certification that a business can get. It's called a third-party verification that a business can use to say, hey, we've been verified for these specific things. And these are a few companies that you'll see in the box. These are a few companies that are certified. So we've got Ben & Jerry's, we've got Patagonia. We also have a number of local companies that are B Corp certified. The bulk of the companies that make up the B Corp, we'll call them ecosystem, are actually small to medium-sized businesses. So a few local companies that I work with We have So Fine Foods, which is in Bethesda. There's also Carner Blue Capital, which is in Maryland. Climate Advisors, which is in Maryland. Those are all local B Corps. There's also a number of local B Corps in Washington, D.C., and then also in the Northern Virginia area. So there's a B Corp directory where you can look up local B Corps, and I'd be happy to show folks where that is on the website if you're interested. Next. So how does a company become B Corp certified? So you have to meet the performance requirements. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to do that. So you have to meet the performance requirements, which means that you have to complete the assessment and earn a minimum score of 80 out of 200 points. There's also a legal requirement, which is becoming a benefit corporation. We can talk about the difference in being a certified B Corp business and being a benefit corporation. I'll talk a little bit about that. And then making it official, so signing the Declaration of Interdependence, where all businesses, the businesses that become B Corp certified are acknowledging that they are a part of a global network of businesses that are trying to do good for the environment and for social welfare. So that's the Declaration of Independence. And again, the minimum requirement is 80 on the score in order just to qualify for certification. So I should also mention that there are over 75,000 companies using the B Impact Assessment as a benchmarking platform, but worldwide, there's only 3,700 companies that are actually certified. So it's a very comprehensive and can be somewhat rigorous process depending on the size of the company that's trying to go through the assessment. We often find that companies that are startups can have a hard time, mostly because they don't necessarily have all of their policies in place. And then also those really, really large multinational companies also have a difficult time becoming B Corp certified, just because there's so many different layers of management, and not all the information is kept, in the same department. They have to work with lots of different shareholders or stakeholders, and they also have to get buy-in from all of the leadership. So it's a comprehensive process, as I mentioned, and of those 3,700 companies that are certified, they encompass a $1 billion marketplace for companies that are B Corp certified. Okay, so why become a B Corp? So yesterday, in the old days, like last year, we had businesses were creating limited opportunity, and then NGOs and governments were cleaning up the mess with lots of regulations and stuff like that. And then now today we have the B Corp movement, which is helping companies become B Corp certified and then helping them become more environmentally and socially responsible. And then tomorrow, hopefully in the future, we'll have businesses creating opportunities for all, creating an inclusive economy, and then NGOs, nonprofits, and the government will only enhance the results for businesses to be environmentally and socially responsible. All right, so the first step for a company is they have to take the assessment. So that's step one. So step one is assess. So you're going to take the assessment. Step two is going to be compare. So after you take the assessment, B Lab is going to compare you to your industry peers. So let's say we can take a business. I mentioned So Fine Foods. They make salad dressing, olive oil-based salad dressing, and they have a certain size of their company, and so they're going to be compared with other food companies and other companies in their sector. So they're going to compare. They're going to say, "Hey, this is how you scored on this section compared to your industry peers." And then also, when we get to step three, they're going to say, "Here's how you could improve," and either meet the benchmark that's been set for your industry and your sector, or even improve beyond that. But all businesses I mentioned have to meet a score of 80 on the assessment to qualify. Okay, so the B Impact Assessment is composed of 5 different areas. So, let me talk a little bit about scoring before I move on. So each question is weighted. That means that each question is worth a certain number of points. So the points can range from 0. So maybe just putting in, a dollar amount of your revenue, maybe that question is worth 0. And then the questions can be worth like half points, or they can even be worth up to 2 or 3 points. The highest scoring question in the assessment is worth 10 points. And that's a question that asks about if your organization is mission locked, meaning is your organization a benefit corporation? Does it have in its operating agreement language that says that if the business is sold over time, that it won't lose its values? It will continue to value environmental, social, and community impacts, even though the business is sold or changes ownership. So you have to get a minimum score of 80, as I mentioned, and you do that through getting different points in the assessment. So you have to answer all of the different questions. And so if you don't meet that score of 80, there's obviously, as I mentioned, that improve section that B Lab has in the assessment. And they will recommend different questions where you might be able to score higher if you were able to maybe put some policies in place, or maybe start tracking some metrics. That's a good way to earn points. But I generally recommend 4 ways to improve your score if companies don't come in at 80. And I will mention that most of the companies that I work with do not come in at 80. They come in significantly lower than 80. So the number one way for a company to improve their score is to formalize their policies. I've worked with a number of companies who don't have things written down. They have things that they practice just in every day, but they don't actually have them written down. One company that I worked with didn't have a maternity leave policy. He didn't know that it was necessary. So having things like maternity leave, having an employee handbook, a lot of the businesses that I work with don't have employee handbooks. So that's something that can be easily done. There's lots of templates out there for employee handbooks. So formalizing policies is one of the easiest ways to score points. Tracking metrics. So most of the companies that I work with, as I mentioned, are small to medium, and they haven't started tracking metrics. So metrics might include things like volunteer hours. Are their employees doing any volunteer for local nonprofits, and keeping track of those hours that their employees are doing. Could be environmental metrics. It could be something as simple as creating an Excel spreadsheet and then just tracking how much recycling your business is producing over time. So I do the sustainability metrics for Bethesda Green, and I keep track of our electricity and our water use, which went basically to 0 in 2020 because everybody's working from home. But even those small little things that tracking that can be done year over year, those things start to add up, and they can really become marketing points for the company to say, hey, here's what we're tracking, and here's how we're giving back to the community, or here's how we're tracking our environmental impact. So for businesses that don't track anything now, I recommend picking 3 and just starting with 3, because then you can gain momentum over time by starting to track just 3 simple things, including the suppliers. So one company that's really great at this is Patagonia. So Patagonia requires that all of their suppliers be third-party verified, or they require them to become B Corp certified. So on a smaller scale, if you're not a big company like Patagonia, you, as I mentioned, the olive oil-based salad company, she tries to use companies that are local to her. So she's in Bethesda, Maryland. So she tries to use suppliers that are local to her. Olive oil is made in California, unfortunately. So she tries to find companies or trucking companies that are bringing her product certain places to see if they're B Corp certified, or if they have any environmental or social impact or that they're tracking. Those sorts of things. That's how you can include your suppliers. And again, make it official. So tell your customers, tell your stakeholders that you're trying to be a better business, and make sure that of those metrics that you do have, make sure you're using those to tell everybody your sustainability or your social impacts. Okay, so next, moving on. So there's 5 different areas of the impact of the BIA, which is the B Impact Assessment. So the first area is governance. So the governance section looks at a company's mission, ethics, accountability, and transparency. So this is an area of the assessment that most of the businesses don't normally think about. So they don't think that they necessarily have a governance structure. They might have an operating agreement or a partnership agreement to say that they're a business, but they don't normally think about how all of those policies interact with each other, or how they could enhance those policies over time and how they get applied throughout the business. So the governance section can take a while for some businesses. And as I mentioned, that 10-point question, that benefit corporation question, is within the governance section. The workers, so obviously B Lab asks a lot about workers. They want businesses to be creating full-time employee jobs or part-time employee jobs. They want to know if employees have access to healthcare benefits, if they have access to any equity inclusion in the ownership of the company. So workers are really important. They want to know if the business is using a lot of unpaid interns or using a lot of subcontractors and not actually generating jobs. So those are all things that B Lab wants to know about workers. Community. So B Lab wants to know how you're involved in your community. Are you working with local nonprofits? Are you working with other businesses? Do you have any partnerships that you're doing? Is there any specific group in the community that you're targeting? So some businesses will pick a specific cause or a specific group to work with, like veterans. So they might create an employee development program that focuses around veterans. So it really depends. And then the third section or the fourth section is the environment section. So this is pretty much how you would normally think about it. It talks about waste, air, water, electricity. If you're a manufacturing company, the assessment will actually open up to more than 200 questions, and it will ask you some additional questions to evaluate what your impacts are in the manufacturing industry. So I will say this, most of the other third-party verifications that I've seen only really focus on the environmental aspects. They don't look at the community. They don't necessarily look at the workers. They don't look at the governance of the company. They're really focused on the environmental impacts, which makes this type of certification significantly more comprehensive than anything else that's out there. So for-profit businesses, so the assessment is only available for for-profit businesses. So for for-profit businesses, this is pretty much considered the gold standard right now. And then the last area is customers. So they want to know in the business model, B Lab wants to know, are you working with any underserved communities in your area? Or do you have a pro bono service that you're offering or a free product? Or is there a product that's marketed to either vulnerable populations or low to moderate income populations, so that you're not just focused on one audience that might be a little bit more wealthy. They want to know if you're engaging those customers that you might not typically think of. So next, benefit corporations. So there's a lot of confusion out there about benefit corporations. So being B Corp certified means that your company has taken the B Impact Assessment and you have become certified through the nonprofit organization B Lab. So that's what it means to be B Corp certified. Being a benefit corporation means that you have a legal distinction within the state where the business was originated, stating that you are a benefit corporation. So you can be a benefit corporation and not be B Corp certified. You can be B Corp certified and not be a benefit corporation. They're not mutually exclusive. I will say this. If you are a benefit corporation, that will earn you more points in the assessment. That's that 10-point question that I was mentioning. So if you want your organization to have that legal designation to protect it, if it's sold over time, to maintain those values, it's really important to become a benefit corporation. So it depends on what state the business is incorporated in. The first benefit corporation was drafted by Jamie Raskin in Maryland. So obviously Maryland has benefit corporation language, but I will mention that not all states in the United States have benefit corporation language. And there are even fewer states that offer benefit corporations for LLCs. I think there's 3. So I basically grabbed these graphics from this website. So the website is called benefitcorp.net. And I would encourage folks, and Rebecca, if you want to throw the link in the chat, benefitcorp.net. Folks can go to this website, and it's basically a 101 on benefit corporations and the different reporting requirements for each state. It's also really good for folks that need to find an attorney to learn how it's going to, when they put that language into their operating agreement, how it might affect their operating agreement or their partnership agreement. So if folks are considering or if I'm working with a business that wants to become a benefit corporation, I always send them to this website to get more information. So the reporting requirements, as I said, vary by state. Most states require an annual sustainability report or an annual benefit report be produced. Most of the examples that I've seen from local B Corps are pretty simple. They can be about 5 pages long, and it just talks about what the values are of the company, how they scored on the assessment is something that they put in the sustainability report. And then they can also highlight all of the values of the company. So maybe the company has a really strong volunteering policy that they like to highlight. So putting those things in an annual sustainability report. Other states might have other reporting requirements on being a benefit corporation and holding that designation. So if you know of a business that's interested in becoming a benefit corporation, I would highly recommend that they go to this website. So it's benefitcorp.net. And if folks are interested or they're entertaining investors, there's also a guide on the benefitcorp.net website on investors. So I will go through this tool fairly quickly. So B Lab used to have a tool called the Quick Impact Assessment, which was a subset of questions from the full B Impact Assessment, which was 200 questions, and it was designed to be an on-ramp for businesses who might not be ready to get their feet wet in the full 200 question survey. So they created this cool tool. It was released last year. It's called the SDG Action Manager, and it's based on the principles of the UN Global Compact. And basically they devised the questions, they're called SDGs. Folks can go to the UN Global Compact and look at the SDGs for themselves if they want. But B Lab decided to create a tool to replace the Quick Impact Assessment to basically be the on-ramp for businesses to decide if they want to continue with certification. So it's a really great way for businesses who might not be ready to get certified to start benchmarking their impact without getting ready for certification yet. So if a business is resource strapped or they might not have the capacity yet, they can learn about what it means to answer the questions as a business would go through the B Impact Assessment. So I'll quickly go through all of the Sustainable Development Goals. The first one is no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being. And then we have quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation. And then we have affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities, responsible consumption and production, and then climate action, life below water, life on land, and then the last two are peace, justice, strong institutions, and then partnerships for the goals. So those are all the SDGs. So why would a company start with a BIA versus an SDG? So the BIA, if the business that you're working with is interested in becoming B Corp certified, they should start with the BIA. So it's all inclusive in testing. As I mentioned, it's 200 questions. You'll get an overall score at the end. And as I mentioned before, the company has to get a minimum score of 80 in order to qualify for certification. If the business that you're working in just wants to get some information, find out about, the assessment, experiment with the types of questions that they're asking, doing beta testing, they should start with the SDG Action Manager. So it's an average of 30 questions per SDG, and then there's no overall score. So what's cool about the SDG Action Manager, though, is that if you answer questions in the Action Manager, they will auto-populate into the BIA. So you don't actually have to answer the questions again. But in the BIA, you might want to change the answer to your question depending on what SDG you were working on. So companies that I work with, they like to pick an SDG in their industry. So with Bethesda Green, we work with a lot of food companies. So most of the food companies pick zero hunger. That's the SDG that they want to focus on. So they do that beta testing first. They figure out, what are the questions they're asking, what policies might they need to think about putting into place before going into the full B Impact Assessment. So as I mentioned, the BIA first would be for companies that want to become B Corp certified. And then companies that want to do that beta testing would start with the SDG Action Manager. Okay, so how can students get involved? So we have a number of different ways. So we do a student business matching program, where we match students with companies that are either have a sustainability project in mind or might need help with addressing a question or a series of questions in the B Impact Assessment to help get them certified. So on the screen right now, you have some examples of some past projects that we've done. So I can also, if Rebecca, if you want, I can share some examples of past student projects if they're interested. But basically the students complete generally like a semester long project. I always like to finish before finals. I don't like to mess with finals. So we always like to start in the beginning, and the students will meet with the business. They'll discuss the deliverable, and then the students will go do their research, and then they'll generally produce either a report, or if it's a handbook, they would do a final presentation on the handbook that they did for the organization. So there's lots of opportunities for consulting for students, and companies love working with students. I have not met a company that was not excited to work with students generally. And we also do we help students work in teams. We don't like students to work alone. I think it can be a little bit overwhelming for students. So we like to work with students in teams. Again, this is an example of an employee handbook that was done for an organization. You can intern for the Best for DMV campaign. As I mentioned, our campaign is region wide, and we are currently looking for interns to assist with all of our campaign needs, marketing, recruitment for businesses. If folks want to learn about how to run a campaign, those sorts of things. So you can go to BethesdaGreen.org. There's more information there on how to intern for the Best for DMV campaign. So other things, other resources that I wanted to highlight for folks. So if you're looking for work and you want to work at a B Corp, B Lab has a directory called B Work, and you can search the directory and see what B Corps are hiring. It's worldwide. This directory is worldwide. So you can go to B Work and find what other B Corps are hiring. There's also the B Corp directory, as I mentioned before. This directory, basically, you can search whatever type of B Corp you're looking for that's certified worldwide. If you're looking for local B Corps in the DMV area, or in Washington, D.C., or in Maryland, you can go and select the industry. If you're looking for food companies, or if you're looking for landscaping companies, you can select the industry and then the territory that you're looking for, and you can see all the companies that are certified in a specific area. And then this directory also shows you how they scored on the assessment. So it will show you basically what their score is for governance, what their score is for the environment, what their score is for the community, and then what their overall score is. So if you were ranking different B Corp certified companies, you would be able to see their different scores. Last, I want to encourage interns and students to encourage your employer to get certified. So I have had more than a handful of companies tell me that they want to get certified because an intern told them that they should. So business owners listen. Business owners really want to attract the best talent that they can. They want to hire smart, hardworking people. And if the folks that they want to hire are telling them that they want to work for a company that's B Corp certified, they listen. So again, I would always encourage businesses to tell their employers that to get B Corp certified, because it will only increase their attraction to great candidates, including students. So just as an example, I had a company that came to me who was interested in getting certified because his daughter worked for him, and he basically, his daughter told him that he should get certified, and she was looking for a job, and he's like, if folks your age want me to get certified because they think that my mission is great and they think that I can do really good in the world, then I will absolutely get certified. So I would absolutely encourage students and interns to talk to your employer about becoming B Corp certified, because they listen. They're excited about it. And then that's it. So that's the end of my presentation.
I think then, Kim, we will go ahead and wrap it up. It's been wonderful to have you with us this evening. I've learned a lot. I will be taking it back on Friday to the students who are in my class and sharing with them, because a lot of them are really interested in, like I said, they're really interested in making the world a better place. And they're also interested in business. And I think that this is like the perfect marriage of those two things. So thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciated it.